When you're gone as a man, the memories aren't going to be about how hard you worked or how much money you made. Your wife and your children are going to remember the moments that you were there or the moments that you weren't there. You choose to be the person that you know you get to be. You get to believe that, and then you get to do something about it. If it only lives in the mind, then it dies in the mind. It doesn't become your reality. An incredible amount of pressure that men put on themselves to show up and be the perfect man, the perfect husband, the perfect father, without realizing that there is no perfect.
Kristin Abercrombie is one of the world's leading mindset experts. This woman has personally helped me keep my family together, save my marriage, and make millions of dollars in my business without sacrificing the other parts of my life. In today's podcast episode, we go deep in how men think, what's going on in our brains that's preventing us from having the balance and success we truly deserve in wealth and the other parts of our life. So if you want to be able to control your mind as a man, if you want to be able to understand your partner better, your children better, your team better, and if you want to become unfuckwithable mentally, then this episode is for you. I hope you enjoy this episode with Kristin Abercrombie. I've paid her tens of thousands of dollars, and you're getting this value for free today in the Empowered Man podcast. Kristin, thank you so much for jumping on. How are you going today?
You're welcome. I'm doing great. Fantastic.
Awesome. So I'd love for you to explain to the listeners right now who might have marriage issues or they're stressed or have no time. What does a personal mastery coach do? What do you do? And tell us a bit about who you are and your story.
Yeah, sure. So a personal mastery coach supports you in mastering the inner landscape, in mastering yourself, your own internal conversations, your internal choices, and supports you in mastering that along the way as things come up in life that will attempt to sabotage the mastery of the self. And that's a lifelong journey. A bit of my background and where I'm from and what I do. So I am based in America, on the West Coast of America. Moved up from San Diego, California to the Pacific Northwest a few years ago. My journey along the way, I've been doing some type of coaching since I was young, in my teenage years. And you wouldn't call it that at the time. And you wouldn't necessarily know that's what it was. But often when people come to you for guidance or support or advice, in many ways, that's coaching. So throughout your life, you're honing these skills, you're mastering these skills yourself as much as possible. I started out my professional career in high-tech corporate America in the Silicon Valley, in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I loved that. It's constructive, it's confrontational in the best possible way. It's fast-paced, it's exciting. And I was literally a number. I was a number to the company. And internally, I always knew there's something more. There's something more out there. I didn't feel fully aligned with that. I didn't feel like I was contributing to anything but a company's bottom line. And so I took a good look at myself in the mirror and everything around me and what I'd created. And I realized that it wasn't in alignment with who I wanted to be and what I wanted to create in my life. And so I left. I left corporate America and decided to go on a journey of doing and being all the things I've ever wanted to do and be professionally and personally, and in creation, and really take this one life that we're given and live it to the absolute fullest. And eventually along the way, it led me to where I am right now, which is I am a private personal mastery coach as an entrepreneur. That's my own private practice. I also run an emotional intelligence academy that is based out of Texas here in America. It's the #1 premier emotional intelligence academy in America. And we put on incredible life-changing, life-altering trainings every approximately 2 months with large teams that go through. In addition to that, I am a badass boy mom. My 14-year-old son is my North Star. He's everything. And I am an incredible partner to my partner, Jameson.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And Jameson is one of the coaches here at the Empowered Man. He's been working with us for almost 2 years now. So you talk about this idea of personal mastery. You and I both know that almost every problem or challenge in life comes from not mastering yourself. If you've got marriage problems, if you're arguing with your wife, if you're not intimate with your partner, you can be damn sure that's a mirror or reflection of something not necessarily broken, but something that's misaligned within you. If you're stressed out and have no time and you're working so hard in your business or career, but you're lacking purpose and direction, you feel burnt out and tired, that's a reflection of your internal world. Now, you and I both know that after working together for years, but a lot of men listening or wives listening don't actually understand that principle. So, why do you think we have such an epidemic in this day and age of depressed, anxious, stressed, divorced men? What is happening internally? What is happening up here that's causing so many men to end up in divorce or mental breakdown, or like you were, lacking purpose in what you do and not living their dream life? Because a lot of men listening right now, they're not living their dream life. They're like, fuck, is this it? So why do you think that is? What's the biggest cause of these issues?
I believe it's multiple things. One of the primary things that I've seen and I've experienced and I've coached is there is an incredible amount of pressure that men put on themselves to show up and be the perfect man, the perfect husband, the perfect father, the perfect human, without realizing that there is no perfect. It's such a
Mm,
subjective word. Perfect to me is not going to be perfect to someone else. So why they're constantly striving to earn the money and be the breadwinner and to be this amazing dad and spend his time there and spend his time with his wife and satisfy his wife and love his wife, he doesn't stop to take a look at himself and realize that pressure isn't how you get it done.
mm,
That the way to true happiness is through things that aren't incredibly common to men, even modern day men. It's slowing down, it's being vulnerable, it's having intimate conversations with your wife, with your children, with the people around you. It's
mm.
realizing that while making money is amazing and it's incredible and providing for your family is so important, what's even more important than that, underneath all of it, is whether or not you're there. Because
Mm,
when you're gone as a man, when you're not on this planet, on the surface of this planet anymore, the memories aren't going to be about how hard you worked or how much money you made or that, that award you won in the company or in the business. Your wife and your children are going to remember the moments that you were there or the moments that you
yeah,
weren't there.
absolutely. It's so funny, right? Because every man knows this deep down. We know that we work too much. We know that we're triggered and stressed and we take it out on our loved ones. And even when we're there, we're not there. But God forbid we make time for ourselves. It's so common in this day and age for a modern man to go to the bottom of the barrel, to put himself last and sacrifice his health, his happiness, his time, and himself in this pursuit of success. I've fallen into this trap, right? Where you chase more money, more success, more clients. And because you're so focused on the target and providing and achieving that next goal, you're not enjoying the journey whatsoever. You're constantly triggered and stressed. And when you finally hit that fucking outcome, when you hit the goal, it's not enough. You don't celebrate it. You just go on to the next thing and you can't really enjoy life, which is a big reason why I sought coaching, was because I'm like, fuck, is this it? Why am I here? So clearly, men don't look within. They put themselves last. They aren't present with their loved ones. What would you say, in your experience, are the biggest causes of relationship breakdown and divorce? We've talked a little bit about it, but what have you seen working with my clients, with me, with our clients' wives? What is breaking down in the relationship between husband and wife and father and children?
Communication.
Communication.
If I had to distill it down to one thing, it would be communication. And what I mean by that is it's not seeing someone. It's not, listening to someone. Most often what I'm coaching, and this is true for every client that I coach, it's incredible how universal this is. They're listening to respond. They're listening to defend. They're not listening to listen. They're not listening to understand what the other person is saying and quieting that internal voice that has them listening to think of what it is that they want to respond with, instead of just clearing all that out and being present with the magnificent human in front of them and listening to understand them, to love them. And I call it listening to listen. Are you listening to listen, or are you listening to formulate what you want to say next, to defend? And that's universally true. Often it's not so much what someone says to another person. It's what someone believes they heard someone say, right? So you can say something to me. You can say, Kristen, I think it's going to rain today. And I will have heard you say, for example, if I'm a runner, he just said, I'm not going to be able to go outside and run today. But that's not what you said. That's what I heard, but that's not what you said. And so there's a breakdown in that simple communication of receiving and understanding and fully being present with someone. It's the same thing with men and their children and their wives and vice versa. This is a two-way street. It's so incredibly important to simply listen, to talk, to be able to navigate conflict, because it's not a question whether or not men and women, husbands and wives, are going to have conflict. It's how they're going to navigate that conflict that matters most. It's how they're going to show up. Are they going to show up in such a way that they want to resolve the conflict? They're going to navigate it from a place of love and understanding, or are they going to navigate it from, I'm wrong, I get to defend myself, I'm right, because if I'm always right, the other person's always wrong. And then we get into this cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. That cycle is so destructive, and there's so much to unpack with what you just said. Just really quickly, if you're getting value from this podcast episode, I'd appreciate a massive favor. If you're watching on YouTube, give this a thumbs up, or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other platform, give this 5 stars. It helps us reach more men, keep more families together, and get better guests onto the show. So if you're getting value, all that I ask is you take 5 seconds to give it a thumbs up or 5 stars so we can help more people and keep delivering you epic value. That word, present, most men don't even know what that means anymore. And it's quite ironic because we protect and we provide, and that comes naturally. It's almost like we're forced into that as a man. You have children, you grow your wealth or business, you protect, you provide, whether you feel like it or not. But then you've got nothing left in the tank to be present. And that's where I've experienced this personally, the frustration, the pressure you talked about, the judgment comes out. And most of that pressure and stress and judgment comes from unmet expectations. So if we link the two, we have a lack of communication, a lack of presence, a lack of listening, combined with a lack of your expectations being met. That's when that collision happens in the form of getting upset at your partner. She asks how your day was. You go, it was fine. You're not feeling intimate or getting enough sex. So you get angry at her and you say something you shouldn't say. It's almost like the two are linked, right? There's the pressure and the stress and the lack of presence and the lack of listening. And then there's the, I'm not getting what I want, therefore you're wrong. I did this to Rosie for years, as you well know, because you've coached me. I would judge her. I would get upset at her. I remember a moment a few years ago, I was sitting in our car before a retreat, and Sam, my head coach, was right there. And you're like, you're always looking for how she's wrong. Where are you looking for where she's right? And I was just like, my brain fucking exploded in that moment. So how do you as a man, if you're listening to this and you're blaming your wife and you're not listening and you're not present and you're not communicating well, how do you fix that? Like, where do you even start? What would you say is the steps to actually go from where you are to fixing that?
Well, the first thing is to identify it. Call out the elephant in the room. All right. Recognize that it's actually going on. So like you just said, I remember that conversation like it was yesterday. Because it brought you to emotion in that moment. And you get to be aware that it's even happening first. So first there's awareness, right? And your body typically will tell you that there's something going on. You get triggered, you're feeling a certain type of way, you're feeling an emotion, maybe it's anger, maybe it's depression, maybe it's sadness. So your body's telling you something which you get to be aware of. And once you're aware of that, you get to excavate and discover and uncover what's really going on. Right? So you move from your body telling you something to your mind and really understanding and being aware of how you're showing up. Are you blaming? Are you actually hearing what the other person is saying? Are you hearing what your wife is saying? Or are you listening and hearing what you think she said? If the woman in front of you is your wife and she's telling you, I feel disconnected from you. And what you're hearing is, I'm not connecting enough. It's not good enough for you. You've just gone into a trigger pattern where now you're blaming yourself for something and you're feeling guilty and you're feeling shame. Most likely, not 100% of the time, but most likely. So in that moment, you get to pause and what did she actually say? I feel disconnected. Because then when we go internal with the, oh, I feel horrible, I'm not showing up, I'm not good enough, I'm not communicating or connecting enough, then we get into defense mode because we don't want to feel like that. Men don't want to feel like that. Women don't want to feel like that. No one does. It feels like shit, okay? It feels like shit to not be able to connect with your partner and to hear them say, I don't feel connected to you. That hurts. But she's putting words on it and she loves you enough to tell you that, which means she's coming to you to say, I want to be connected to you. So in that moment, it's flipping the script on it and hearing what she's saying. And if this person in front of you is handing you the keys to the kingdom, she's telling you that I feel disconnected versus just being disconnected and allowing that gap and that divide to grow. In that moment, you can choose to hear what she said and say, how can I support you? How can I love you? What can I do? What can we do together? Please give me feedback and tell me all the ways that feel disconnected to you. It's choosing to hear her and see her and then reach your heart out to her to connect with her versus getting in that deeper emotion around, I'm not doing something right. I'm just not doing something right. And then going into defense mode, which is universal for men and women.
Yeah. I mean, when people feel attacked, they defend. It's age old. And even if you know that person's right, you know what they're telling you is 100% accurate. And that's why it triggers you. If I call you a transvestite, you're probably not going to get triggered because you'll just laugh and go, well, I know I'm not. But if I say you've been a terrible mother or partner, there might be a part of you that goes, fuck you. Because you know that there might be some elements of truth to it. And I'm not saying that's the case. This is a really powerful thing you just said about feedback. Like, men and women are constantly clashing. And we have different worldviews, different beliefs. My wife was raised a different way. I was raised a different way. You were raised a different way. Your partner was raised a different way. And we have opposing worldviews, beliefs, feelings, emotions, the way we deal with life. And we seem to think as humans, we just find the one. You don't. It's very rare. You grow into the one. The problem is when we get nagged and we get this feedback, we get defensive and don't do anything about it. When my wife says to me, she's upset about the toilet seat being up, she doesn't give a shit about the toilet seat. She gives a shit about how she feels and the story around the toilet seat. The story is he doesn't care, he doesn't listen, he always makes a mess, I'm exhausted and he's not supporting. But what we do is we defend and go, it's just a fucking toilet seat, instead of listening. And the toilet seat's a metaphor for any nagging, any feedback, any negativity from your partner. It's just feedback to go, I'm not feeling loved, I have a story. And I think a lot of men struggle to actually go, slow down, like you said, be present, because we're so fucking stressed, we're so triggered, we don't have the bandwidth or the capacity to slow down and go, holy shit, thank you for the feedback. What do you mean by that? I've just put the toilet seat down, but is everything okay? What's going on? And then our partner goes, I'm fine. And then we go, oh, fair enough. No, we don't go fair enough. We go, no, seriously, help me understand. That's a phrase you've given me. Help me understand what's really going on for you. How are you feeling? What are you thinking? So if we know that communication is breaking down, we know that as men we're struggling to be present, we know that we put ourselves last, and we know we can't slow down effectively. The first step is awareness. How do we then understand ourselves and our partners so that we can get to a point where we are connected again? Because ultimately it is a breakdown of understanding. How would you go through that process for someone listening?
I would say you get to get curious. Honestly, curiosity is going to be the thing that causes you to understand yourself more, to understand what's underneath that, to understand your wife more. So the problem is rarely the problem, right? Like you just said, the toilet seat isn't the problem. The problem is underneath that. It's so far underneath it. It's, well, I've told him 100 times, he doesn't listen, which means if he's not listening, he doesn't care enough about me to listen. If he doesn't care enough about me to listen, he doesn't love me. If he doesn't love me, then there's something wrong with me. You see how that quickly spirals?
And it's all happening in split seconds subconsciously without us even realizing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
So you get to get curious. Ask yourself the questions like, what's this really about? Because again, your body tells you you're triggered, right? And then your mind goes somewhere and you become aware of that. Well, now get curious about it. What's really underneath this? What's really going on? And you're asking yourself, so you get to get clarity. You've heard me say that word so many times in our coaching. Clarity, right? You're aware of something. Okay, now you get to get clarity on it. To get clarity with your wife, you get to ask. You get to ask her questions, deeper questions, not, why do you not like me putting the toilet seats out? It's, okay, I heard you. What is it about me not putting the toilet seat down that really bothers you, that triggers you, that annoys you? Give her space to put words on it. Give her space to feel heard, like you care enough to understand. Okay, that's what I would say. So it's really curiosity. It's asking questions. You can never ask too many questions, right? It isn't necessarily that people love to talk about themselves, which is what you hear all the time, right? People love to talk about themselves. No, they don't. People love to be understood.
That's powerful.
They want to be understood. And if we're not listening, if we're not asking questions, if we're not getting curious, we're not understanding at the deepest level that we can.
That's so powerful. I've never heard it framed that way because I do believe that people love to talk about themselves. And it's quite ironic because I see you for an hour a week. I have done for years. And I just brain dump on you. That's why I believe everyone needs a coach. I share with Kristen what's happening in my marriage. Is it positive or negative? Am I stressed or triggered? What's happening in my business? And I just talk for an hour. Now, I don't act like that with anyone else. When I'm around other people, I ask questions. And I've observed that people just love talking about themselves. But it's actually what you said. It's that not that they love talking about themselves. They just want to be understood. And a powerful frame for this is if you're not feeling understood by your wife or partner, you don't feel understood by your team, you don't feel understood by your children, seek to understand before seeking to be understood. Yes. That requires a huge level of self-awareness as a man to realize that the reason your relationships, your business, your health aren't working is not anyone else's fault. It solely falls on you. Now, that also doesn't mean it's your fault either. Like, you haven't intentionally fucked up your life. No one's driving home after a long work day going, can't wait to argue with my wife. How am I going to fuck it up today? Right. It's subconsciously happening, right? But it is your responsibility. So I want to tie this into, we got awareness, we got getting curious. Before we can get curious around what's going on with our wife or partner or children or team, we also get to get curious within ourselves. And a lot of men, I've been there, they struggle to actually go within. And because they struggle to switch off and go within and deal with everything, they sedate. They sedate with alcohol, drugs, porn, gambling, social media, or maybe even work. You and I have worked with many men who have no vices. They just work 80 hours a week and they're never home. How does a man who is stressed, triggered, or sedating, isolating, mentally masturbating, how does a man like that get the courage and awareness to get curious about himself and start taking responsibility? How do you do that?
You get really real with yourself, first of all. You get to call yourself on your own bullshit. That's the honest truth. If you're doing any of these things, if you're sedating with alcohol, drugs, porn, work is a form of sedation, all right? If any of those things are happening, you know that. That's clear. You know that you're drinking. You know that you're doing drugs. You know that you're watching porn when your wife goes to sleep at night. Okay? You know that you're watching porn on your lunch hour. You know that you've worked 80 hours this week and your wife would love for you to be home. All right? You're not oblivious to that. It's not invisible. So the fact that you know that this is happening, you get to get real and say, wait a minute, hold on. Is this really the life that I want to live? Is this the legacy that I want to leave my wife and my children and my children's children and so on? Is this the generational story that I want to tell? You get to get really real with yourself, and you'll find that obviously the answer is likely no. So then the question is, well, what do I do? What do I get to do about it? How do I get to do this? Which is the question for so many men. Oftentimes, the answer is to step back and take a look at what's not working in your life. What's in the gap? Okay, let's say you're someone who works 80 hours a week. All right, you'd rather work 80 hours a week than face the reality and the truth of where you're at in your life, how you're not showing up. It's much easier to ignore it and push it aside, right, than it is to really stand in front of it. And once you make that decision, then you get to take action on it. And the action sometimes looks like, okay, this is what's not working in my life. What's the opposite of working all the time? Well, the opposite of working all the time can look like spending time with my wife. It can look like, instead of working 80 hours, working 70, and then maybe 60, and then maybe 50, and then maybe 40. It's creating a vision that's bigger than yourself. Because most men, not all, but most men who are working all the time, they're doing so because they want to create, they want to provide, they want to be the man that brings everything home for their family. They have a vision. Well, now, what if that vision was even bigger? What if it was bigger than you? What if it were so big that it were scary? Right? Yeah. So big that you've got an epic family, you've got an amazing connection with your wife, you're having sex 5 times a week, you're going on dinner dates constantly, you're on vacation, and you're running an empire, not just a business that you're going to 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
So create a vision. And then once you've done that, align everything you do to that vision. Align every way of being that you show up with in the world, every action you take with that vision.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And that requires a radical shift. I mean, this destroys more marriages than anything else. And it's that as men, we lie to ourselves. We're so good at kicking the can down the road and sweeping shit under the rug. And it's because we think we're successful and making money. When my business was doing the best, my marriage was breaking down. Rosie and I weren't having sex or being intimate. We were arguing with each other. Talia was seeing it. And I didn't feel like I had purpose or connection. But like most men, I pretended like things were okay. It takes a radical amount of courage to look in the mirror and say, you know what? Shit's not working. My body knows shit's not working. My mind knows. My wife knows. My family knows. My team know. And to be able to put your hand up and say, shit's not working. And then to go even deeper and say, what's not working? And once you've established what's not working and how it's not working and how it's affecting you, that is painful, but the pain of delaying it is far greater. It's divorce, mental breakdown, losing everything. And this is what we teach our clients. Once you have the truth of where you are, now it's easy to build a vision because the vision's the opposite. Like you just said, having sex 5 times a week, that's a lot for when you're above 30, right? Having time, having energy, having presence, enjoying life, having fun and connection, while also having an empire. You can have that. And if you currently don't have it, it's very obvious that you're not getting to the truth. And the truth fucking hurts. It takes a lot of courage to actually admit that. But once you got that truth and the vision, now it's about the actions you take, as you just shared. Now, one of the things that a lot of men do is they self-sabotage, right? So every man listening to this, every woman listening to this knows that they're currently not where they want to be. They might be falling apart and breaking down, or they might just be like unhappy with their existence. Every human knows they want more in some way, shape, or form. And everyone knows there are actions to take, and most of us know what some of those actions are. But we self-sabotage. What does self-sabotage mean for modern day men? What does it look like? How does it manifest? How does it show up for these guys? And then we'll go into how to actually fix it. Because I guarantee there's guys listening who self-sabotage a lot.
100%. So without getting too deep into the science of self-sabotage, it's subconscious. All right. It's occurring subconsciously. It's a pattern. I talk a lot about patterns. It's a pattern that we've created. Things are going really good right now, so let me fuck it up. Okay. Yep. And that's literally what self-sabotage is like. And there's the ego conversation. And when I say ego, I'm not talking about someone being boastful and egoic. I'm talking about the part of ourselves that is our ego, that was designed in childhood, that was created in childhood, literally to protect us. So the ego chooses to self-sabotage to protect us, interestingly enough. And it's doing a job that was created for it maybe when you were 5 or 6 or 7 years old, but now you're 30 or 40 or 50, and it's still doing the same job, but you're not the same person at the same age. So that's where it's coming from. And what self-sabotage looks like is, honestly, a man fucking it up before it gets taken away from him. Before he
takes it away from himself. Like, what examples have you seen of men and women you've worked with doing this to themselves? Because it can destroy marriages. Like, you can have everything together and lose it overnight by fucking it up. And a lot of guys do this.
Absolutely.
If you're getting value from this podcast episode and you want to learn how you can have a better relationship, a better marriage, you can be a better father, husband, the man you know your family deserves, then it's very fucking hard to do that just by listening and getting fed information. Sure, this is valuable, but what's much more valuable is having a custom roadmap and a custom plan. And that's exactly what we do here at The Empowered Man. So if you want to learn how to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, and find work-life balance, then that's exactly what we want to help you with. We'll help you make more money, working less hours, have that life you deserve by becoming unfuckwithable. Just tap the link down below in the description and go and book a coaching session with my Empowered Man team. On that session, we'll build your custom Empowered Man roadmap to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, find work-life balance, and have the life you deserve. Click the link down below right now.
So I've seen it come in the form of things like cheating, emotional affairs. It comes in the form of arguments, starting an argument from thin air, from nothing, to self-sabotage. When things are going really good, doing something to undermine everything that they've created. For example, I'm spending a lot of time with my wife. She seems incredibly happy. I think I'm going to go start back working another 60, 70 hours a week. Things are really good right now. So I've got it to this place. Let me move my focus over here. So all of that is a form of self-sabotage. And it comes from, like I said, the ego wanting to protect you, because somewhere along the way, a belief has been created that if I don't fuck this up first, she's gonna leave me. She's gonna cheat on me. I don't deserve this. I'm damaged. I'm not worthy of this incredible life that I've created. So here, let me mess it up. And then let me tear it down and rebuild it, and tear it down and rebuild it.
Yeah. There are so many men we've worked with, and some of them make 10, 20, 30, 40, $100 million a year. And they do this. And at the core of it, a lot of men won't admit this. It's the fact that they don't feel like they're good enough. Like, I don't have enough. I don't do enough. I'm not good enough. I am not enough. And again, it takes so much courage and awareness as a man to go, you know what? This is me. Like, I put on this brave face and I think I'm successful when everyone tells me how great I am in my business or career, but I don't feel it. I don't believe it. I spoke to a guy who was going to join the program a few months ago, and he didn't pull the trigger. He had a bunch of excuses, and he was literally telling me, he's like, I did a visualization with him. I was like, you wake up every day, you're full of energy, water off a duck's back, you deal with the stress, you're healthy, you come home, your wife looks at you with desire and appreciation and respect, and she loves you and she sees you and she hears you and she understands you. And he opened his eyes mid-visualization. He says, everyone tells me I've got that life, but I don't believe it. And this guy's making $10 million a year. So we talked a lot in our coaching last year. Guys, I spent thousands of dollars just for this one lesson. So please write this down and embed it. We talked about knowing and then doing and then being. So can you walk me through that principle as it relates to everything we've discussed? Communication, self-sabotage, connection, awareness, curiosity, they're all connected. How does a man apply this principle? Break that principle down for me because I found it so fucking valuable for every area of life. What is it?
So let's start with this one thing to know something, and you get to know it first, right? You get to believe it, and then you get to be it, and then you get to do it. So there's knowing and believing, and then being, and then doing, right? So every single thing starts in the mind. Everything, all of it, everything that's been created starts in the mind, right? So we know something, we have an idea, we think of something, there's a perspective. So there's a knowing, there's an internal knowing that gets to be a belief. So you're knowing, and now you get to believe. Once you know something, you cannot unknow it. You get to then choose to be in alignment with what that is. You get to be that person. You get to be who it looks like to create the thing that is in your mind, to have the conversation in your mind, to be the person that doesn't self-sabotage. Who is that person? What do they act like? What do they move like? Who are they being? All right. Then you take who you're being into what you do, the action you take. All right. So again, it begins here, and then you choose to be the person that you know you get to be. You get to believe that, and then you get to do something about it. Because if it only lives in the mind and it doesn't come out in the way that you are choosing to be in your life, and you're not doing anything about it, then it dies in the mind. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't become your reality.
So to unpack this for anyone listening, because I understood the words you were saying for the entire year in 2023, but I didn't embody and become this, which is so ironic because that's literally what it is.
Yeah.
So let's say knowing is like, I know there's a problem in my marriage. I know I want more intimacy. I know I work too much. It's just awareness, like clarity. Where am I now? Where do I want to go? That's knowing, right? Like point A, point B. I know point A, I know point B. I know what I don't want. I know what I want. Most men don't even get that far. And then being is asking yourself the question, who do I get to be to get from A to B? No pun intended. So like over here, I'm being grumpy and triggered and I'm showing up as a stressed out man. Who do I get to be? I get to be calm, patient, loving. There's not a man on the planet who doesn't want to feel that way, by the way. So it's like, who do I get to be in my business? Who do I get to be in my marriage? Who do I get to be as a father? And this is an identity, yeah? It's like, this is my identity. I have different versions of Tony. Which version am I going to be here? And then once you've got the knowing, point A and point B, once you've got the who do I get to be, what's my identity, now it's doing, like physically in this world, in this plane, not in your mind, not thinking about doing, I should probably do that, doing it and doing it consistently. Is that sort of the formula? It's like knowing, doing, being.
Absolutely. So I'm going to take the example that you just said with the man that wants more intimacy, more sex in his marriage, right? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So that's what you want. Clearly that's not what you have right now, or it wouldn't be what you desire. All right. So you know what you want. All right. You know what you have and you know what you want. Great. So who do you get to be to actually create that? So, all right, let's take a look at what my wife would want. All right. If I want more sex and intimacy in my marriage, it's not, I want this, I'm going to go get it, I'm going to ask for it. Who do I get to be? How do I get to show up? You get to show up as safe. You get to have conversations. You get to connect with her in a way that isn't physical. You get to speak her love language, not yours. All right. You get to learn her love language. You get to care enough to know about what it is that she wants. You get to create what's called emotional safety. Open that up. And then if you're being that way, if you're getting curious, if you're asking questions, if her love language is acts of service and you clean the house every night for 5 nights, pretty good chance that you're having sex that night. Okay?
Yeah. I've noticed this.
Happening, okay? So literally, you tune in. You get to tune into who she is and who you get to be for her, for your marriage, all right? for the
Yeah.
relationship. And then when you know who you get to be, like in that example, my wife, for example, is her love language is acts of service, and I'm going to go clean the house these next 5 days. And I'm going to now go do that. But you don't just do it for 5 days, okay? So it's not an ends to a mean or a means to an end. It's a journey. It's a journey.
Yeah.
You get to choose to speak that love language all the time. All right. And
Yeah.
it's not a one-way street. Because most often I'll hear my clients that are male say to me, well, if I'm doing that for her again and again and again, that's what she's going to expect. And what is she doing for me? Okay, great question. Thank you for asking. So if you do that again and again and again, well, beautiful. Now you're connecting with your wife. That's what she wants. She
Yeah.
wants you to know her and understand that. And now you're showing up differently. And now you're taking action that's different. And it isn't that she's going to expect it. It's that you're now creating a new dynamic of your entire relationship that actually serves your marriage. All right. And she gets to do the same in kind. It's not a one-way street. It's not a men only know and be and do these things. It's reciprocal. Relationships are reciprocal.
Yeah. Well, this is the magic of what you're talking about, though, because I've mentioned over 100 episodes talked about get your shit together first before you expect anything from your wife. And the most common bit of feedback I get is that's not fair. That's bullshit. Why are men always at fault? Why do men need to always change? And that's not the message. The message is you cannot control your wife or partner. You cannot control your team and your business. You can't control your children. So if you're not getting what you want in any area of life, you can do whatever the fuck you want. But if you look within, you focus on what you can control. And ironically enough, when you start giving your wife more of what she wants, and you do that by seeking to understand her and getting curious, if you don't know, get curious, and you give her more and more, and you don't expect anything in return, by definition, you're going to attract that back to you. If you understand your team, if you understand yourself, if you understand your children, and you work on yourself and become better and grow, people are going to follow that leadership. This is really important. Like Rosie has been working with you for, I think, 2 years or 2.5 years, my wife. And when Rosie and I met, she wasn't doing any personal development. She wasn't listening to podcasts. I'm just going to like bitch fest here, but it will have a point. When you ask her to do something, she wouldn't do it. She was slow. She was, I would say, lazy. This is my judgmental self back then. By removing judgment of her, by removing judgment of myself and understanding myself, she's now getting coaching. She's organized. She's got a schedule. She uses a calendar. She's a far better mother. She's more patient with our daughter. She's more calm and loving. She's more intimate. There was a period a few months ago where we weren't having enough sex, and I calmly brought it to her because we've learned how to communicate. And she got triggered and upset. And then she worked through it and she became more intimate with me. So she's now understanding me more, respecting me more, growing as a human, growing as a mother. And that came from my leadership and her commitment to grow. And I think a lot of men don't realize this is if you want more from the people around you, it begins with creating more within yourself, creating more within the man in the mirror. And that requires a deep level of awareness, responsibility, and commitment. So I sort of just went on a rant there, and I had something else that I wanted to unpack with this. Being, that's it, the last bit. So you talk about being, right? It seems like being and doing are very linked. So you're being the person who helps out around the house. What I've begun to realize is the more you do of the things that embody that identity. So I'm being the guy who helps out around the house. I'm being the guy who's calm and patient when my wife says something triggering. I'm being the guy who leads my team even when things are burning, right? The more you do that, it starts to become who you are by default. Because we have like default Tony, default Kristen. We have design Tony, design Kristen. So do you want to speak into like how being and doing actually becomes who you are and how that can impact your life? How does that sort of fall into place?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Being and doing are inextricably linked. They just simply are. Who you are being while you're doing what you're doing is so important. I'll give you an example with the man who is now choosing to be the man that cleans the house, okay, because that's his wife's love language. He's not being the man who stomps around the house and, I gotta clean this and I gotta sweep this and I gotta do these damn dishes. He's showing up, he's getting it done, he's being loving, he's being in support, he's contributing to his marriage. And while he's doing these things, he's actually putting his being into action, is what it really is. So it's your being and taking that and putting it into action. I want to be the partner that my wife deserves. And this is how I'm going to show up consistently. And consistently is so incredibly important here. This isn't a one-time exercise. This is your marriage. The person that you chose to stand beside you in this life for the rest of your life. This is consistency. So you be in this way. So when I say that, which is really challenging for men to wrap their head and their heart around, like, what does it mean to be a certain way? Well, it's how you do what you do. It's how you choose to clean the house. It's how you choose to show up as emotional safety for your wife, which looks like when she's angry and she's on a rant and she's pissed off, you're not coming back at her with that same energy.
Yep.
You're being calm. You're being patient. You're being safety. You're creating this bubble for her that says, it's safe for you to vent right now. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. One of the most common things when I see men and women get into conflict is a conflict will occur. And as you said a few moments ago, men would sweep things under the rug and they'll say, you know what, I can't deal with this right now. Maybe they're avoidant attachment. I'm walking away from this. I'm out. I just need to go cool off.
Yep.
Doesn't feel emotionally safe. That emotional safety has just been broken because what's been created is abandonment versus saying same thing, different way that it's coming from you, which is, I'm really triggered right now. I'm really frustrated. I'm going to go take 20 minutes. I'm not leaving you. This is important. I do not want to sweep this under the rug. Let's come back and talk about this in 30 minutes. I just get to go cool off.
Insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. The value of that is insane. And that requires so much like awareness and emotional intelligence. But again, if you do that enough times, it becomes who you are by default.
Yeah, it becomes your pattern.
Exactly. And I think that's the lesson here is we started with what's personal mastery. Like if you're listening this far into the podcast, you're clearly committed to growth. And I believe it's a human being's not role, but responsibility to commit to personal mastery. And that means being the best expression of yourself, being the best father or mother, being the best wife or husband, being the best person you can be. And that requires you to do things differently. By definition, if you're not where you want to be and you want something different, you're going to have to do different things. And to do different things, you're going to have to become a different person. And to become a different person, you're going to have to know what to do, how to do it, when to do it, what's not working, what does success look like. There's a lot to unpack here, which is why I've been working with you for years and I probably won't stop anytime soon because there is so much value in coaching. So I'm mindful of time here. We'll definitely have to do another podcast. But Kristen, what is one piece of advice? What is the one most tangible, actionable step a listener can take right now to improve the quality of their life and be a better version of themselves, whether it's in their marriage, their business, or health? What is the most, I know there's a lot, but what would you say is the number one thing you'd give the audience before we talk about wrapping up?
So challenging to pick just one thing.
There's so many. You can do two if you want.
Right? I would say listen, be vulnerable, listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to the people around you that you're in relationship with. Be vulnerable with yourself, be honest and open. All of that boils down to the internal conversation. It comes back to communication, and it's communication within yourself. With yourself. Communication is physical. Sometimes it's visual. Sometimes it's auditory. It's literally being really clear about what you get to shift in your life and then take action.
Love that. And if you are listening right now, we get to take that to a step deeper. If you can relate to any of this, you're stressed, you're triggered, you're not communicating well in your relationship, you've lost that purpose or drive, you're sedating, then it's going to require you to listen. And the number one person you can listen to is yourself. Listen to the fact that your body, your mind, your soul is screaming, there's more out there for me. So if you do want to learn how to listen, be vulnerable, learn how to be not just vulnerable in terms of everything's fucked, be powerful in that vulnerability, be a better father, husband, and man, then go down below and there'll be a link to jump on board with either Kristen or the Empowered Man. If you're a husband who wants the coaching, we've got the Empowered Man call. You can book a call with us. And Kristen's also been generous enough to offer up 5 coaching sessions for free. So if you are a man who wants to have a chat with Kristen, or you have a wife or partner who would benefit from coaching, like what the Empowered Man does, there is going to be a link down below where you can book a coaching session with her for free to discuss what she does and how she could potentially help you. So Kristen, thank you so much for jumping on. We'll definitely have to have you back. Anything else you want to add before we jump off?
Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun. Fully understand why you do it. And just to say thank you for anyone who's gotten this far in the podcast. I appreciate you. I'm grateful that you're here. And Tony, I'll be seeing you in a couple days.
Awesome. We'll see you for my coaching session where I'll probably get triggered and stressed and you help me through it. Thanks so much for listening, guys. If you do want support, go to the links down below right now. Book a session with the Empowered Man or Kristen and we'll get you guys helped out. Have a great day. If you're getting value from this podcast episode and you want to learn how you can have a better relationship, a better marriage, you can be a better father, husband, the man you know your family deserves, then it's very fucking hard to do that just by listening and getting fed information. Sure, this is valuable, but what's much more valuable is having a custom roadmap and a custom plan. And that's exactly what we do here at The Empowered Man. So if you want to learn how to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, and find work-life balance, then that's exactly what we want to help you with. We'll help you make more money, working less hours, have that life you deserve by becoming unfuckwithable. Just tap the link down below in the description and go and book a coaching session with my Empowered Man team. On that session, we'll build your custom Empowered Man roadmap to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, find work-life balance, and have the life you deserve. Click the link down below right now.